The human mind may be the last great mystery of the human race. We know less about the mind than we do about the ocean or space combined. The mind of a child is even more complex. So why so many tantrums? How are chicken nuggets more tasty when shaped like dinosaurs? Why do we have to watch another episode of Peppa Pig? Thankfully, Pixar has helped us parents out with Inside Out 1 and 2. We talk about these movies and more on this episode of Three-Dimensional Dads.
Exploring fatherhood in the next dimension.
I'm Jay.
I'm Derek.
And I'm Ian.
And I really think that we should get Neil deGrasse Tyson to read our intros from now on, because that intro was very, very National Geographic.
Sure. Hey, with AI, we can do anything. We can go do that right now.
I'm weird. And you know what's weird is emotions in our children. Those are really weird.
I like the pivot, Jay.
That was a great pivot.
That was quite the transition.
Listen, I'm trying my best. You know, I'm the dad of a 7-year-old girl. Sometimes things are really confusing, but they're not confusing for me so much as they are for her. I think kids trying to deal with their emotions is the great war. It's like the Spartans and the Athenians. It's like the most difficult war in the history of time. Like, how do kids deal with emotions? Because they're not born with the tools. You know, even adults, we're not born with the tools to deal with our emotions. So I thank goodness that Pixar, in their infinite wisdom, because they do have infinite wisdom. Have you seen Toy Story? I mean, that movie is brilliant, all three of them. They have given us a film to help us understand how our kids emote and how they deal with their emotions. And it's called Inside Out, starring the great Amy Poehler from Parks and Recreation, SNL, and then a whole cast of wonderful, wonderful actors. So let me just really quickly, because some of our listeners might not have seen these films, but I'm going to give you like a little synopsis, right? So both movies, Inside Out and Inside Out 2, they're about the emotions inside of our kids. And basically they're personified: joy, sadness, anger, disgust, fear, anxiety, ennui, which is boredom. All these things are personified in the brain of this little girl named Riley. And you have two movies. The first one, she's about, I think, 9, 10, 11, somewhere around there, but definitely preteen. And her dad gets a new job and he has to move across the country. And this really sets into motion a process for Riley of change. And she has a real hard time dealing with it. And we see that in her emotions and the way they act within her brain, and the idea that her core memories now are being affected. And eventually, I mean, it's Pixar. At the end of the film, everything kind of gets resolved-ish. And, you know, we're kind of left with a nice, sweet ending, which is something Pixar does really well. The moral of the first story, though, is about sadness. And basically, without sadness, you don't have joy. It changes how you feel emotions, right? Like, knowing your emotions makes you appreciate them even more. So, and it can amplify them, stress, anxiety, and joy and gladness. And that's really what the first movie is about.
Yeah, and to also just, you know, paint the Pixar picture, right? So when we're saying emotions, like the cartoon version of it is there's actually like this control board, and each emotion is like a character in this movie, right? So you have anger, you have sadness, you have joy, and then you have fear, right? So, and they're all different characters. But what's really important into like what you were saying, Jay, is that this girl, Riley, just discovers that, you know, without sadness too, you don't have joy. And joy and sadness, who are two characters, joy always wants to be taking over. She wants to be in control because she feels that if Riley's joyful all the time, then things will be happy. But in a lot of ways, and in this kind of the moral of the story is, joy actually goes back and looks at these memories that the girl Riley has, and without having sadness, you can't really have joy. So joy and sadness learn that they become best friends because you can't really have one without the other. And it's important that we have the balance in our life where, you know, you need to have that counterbalance. You need to have the sadness. You need to have the joy, because it also fills out your whole personality as well. So that's a really important lesson, I think, from the movie that everyone takes away from it.
Right. And I love how big the emotions are, too. It's like, I have two daughters, and their emotions are huge. It's like, they don't feel a little bit. They feel either joy all the way to a 10 or all the way to a 10 with sadness. And I thought that was awesome. And I love Pixar so much. And I loved Ratatouille, how they visualized flavor. I thought was so incredible when you bite like, the cheese and the strawberry, and like the strawberry is all poppy and the cheese is all smooth. And like, I love how Pixar can bring these really abstract things and make them visuals and make them something that we can talk about. I think that's incredible. I love the personifying really cool. the characters, like who's driving the ship. Sometimes anger's driving and you get stuck, and anger's just like, that kid's stuck in a temper tantrum. Or, I love that. And the memories being pearls, I thought, too, were so awesome that memories do have these emotions tied to them. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Because some emotions are pure happiness or some are sadness. There's always an emotion with the memory. But my favorite, too, is when they get tinged. Is that the emotion that's pure joy, once she moves, she's sad and she's missing her friends. So that happy hockey memory turns into like a little tinge with sadness. Mm-hmm. And I love that, that helped me talk to my daughters about grief when I lost my dad. Is that talking about him made me sad. Remembering things about him now was not just pure joy. It was sadness in there too. And so I thought that was this was such a great movie for me to be able to talk to my daughters about hard things. And I thought that was awesome. And I also love that Riley, eventually talks to her parents, talks through her emotions. I think it's also really awesome. Yes. It's not just what she's experiencing. It's also her parents are a big part of these movies too. Kind of at the bookends, beginning at the end. But that's great.
And these movies made a lot of money. A lot of money. And what happens when movies make a lot of money? They make sequels.
Yeah. Yep.
They make sequels.
Yes. So recently Inside Out 2 came along. And so this is a story really about teenage Riley facing adolescence. So it really deals with friendship groups and the understanding of like how you establish yourself. It includes her a sense of self as a friend, as a hockey player, and as an individual. Riley's, puberty emotions kick in. Literally, there's a new button that appears on the console board, and the alarm goes off, and it's puberty. And Joy immediately tries to like take it and whip it across. And there's this construction scene that happens basically in Riley's mind because they're like making way, coming through, everything's changing. Here comes puberty,
whether you want it or not. Yeah.
Yes. And so there's a whole new set of emotions that come. So it's not just the 4 characters from the first movie, but then you have in addition characters of anxiety, embarrassment, guilt, and I think the other one was
ennui.
Ennui, yes, ennui.
Boredom, because we know that teenagers are so boredom. Yes, I'm a tortured artist.
Yeah.
They
made cool jokes about nostalgia, and they were like, "Not yet. You're coming like the next movie." The emotion of nostalgia really came was like, "Do you guys remember the time?" Like, not yet. Not until one of Riley's friends goes to a wedding for the first time. It was like one of those jokes.
So the movie's thematically the same. It is. And some of the criticism in the reviews have been it's kind of the same movie. But here's the thing. The context is different. Because as a child age, now I don't want to get all Jean Piaget on you, dropping my psychology cred here. But there's different stages in development and growth. And we are now in a different stage. We are in the puberty stage. So yes, thematically the same, context different. And the results are similar. What happens? Young kids have big emotions. Teenagers have very big emotions, and I work with teenagers, and I've seen their emotions get really big. And as a 6'3", 300-pound man, sometimes it's terrifying to see kids have emotions. I'm kidding. No, kids do have big emotions, and the different things about adolescent emotions is that the amplifiers turn up the volume even higher, and it's a combination of their social structures are changing, their sense of self is changing, their neurotransmitters, instead of like little drops, it's like someone's dropping the Homer bucket from Home Depot of emotional juice into the cauldron there. Oh, yeah. It's a lot. It is a lot. And that's kind of, full disclosure, I did not see Inside Out 2 because I could not get my daughter to go see it because she does not want to sit in the movies for 90 minutes.
You've got to be in the right place to see it. You got to be emotionally ready to watch that movie.
I am not above bribery. I think when I get back from my trip, I am going to try to bribe my child to go see this film with me because I really think it'd be good for her for reasons we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, teenage emotions are amplified, and that's what this movie covers.
Yeah, they actually say that, when you talk about brainstem growth and things, that the amount that a child's brain grows when they're going through the terrible twos at that stage is the same, if not, it's at a different level when a kid is going through puberty, all the way till they're 25. Like your brainstem doesn't like stop growing, right? So you are literally getting the same emotions from like teenagers as you did when your kids are like in the terrible twos and things.
Facts.
So I will say I was skeptical of the movie because Pixar just came out with Turning Red, and it covers, I was afraid it was going to really cover the same content and the same themes, but I really enjoyed a lot of the alliteration that they did with the emotions in this movie, and it was a different take on it. Yep. So the movie is concentrated in the course of a weekend, and I think that also amplifies the emotions as well. It really gives the opportunity to personify them and really exaggerate everything that's happening because you have the story taking place in such a short time span. I really loved, as an adult that has anxiety, I loved how they characterized anxiety in a child.
Me too.
I thought it was amazing the job they did with that. There is literally a point in the movie where they go into Riley's imagination and all the old emotions go through and they're like, oh, I remember this place when Riley was little, and like all this joy and fun, happiness stuff. And it's literally Riley's imagination being worked against her by doing projection. And literally there's all of these little characters drawing up scenarios from anxiety saying, oh, this could happen, that can happen. And it's being basically used against her, and Riley's trying to go to sleep. And so Joy and the other emotions are trying to like draw good things and have her, project good things so she can get to bed. Yeah. And there's this ongoing war. And I just thought that was really amazing. There was also a sarcasm, which was literally a cliff. And when the characters tried to like yell across it, the construction workers that they wanted them to help them, it sounded sarcastic, and they're like, we're not going to help those jerks. So there was like bottling up emotions, floods of emotions. The brilliance of Pixar really came through in just how they use the visuals to interpret these complex things that kids feel. And I thought that was really amazing how they did that.
Oh, yeah. The dad jokes were great. I mean, I loved it. I felt like I was watching one movie, my daughters were watching another. Because they have like these two plots going on simultaneously. Like the characters are on an adventure and they're bright and colorful, and my daughters love that stuff. And I'm watching Riley like deal with her friends and, going from middle school to high school. These transition times are so hard for kids. Yep. Like I remember going from high school to college to the real world. Like all these transition times, you question who you are and what you stand for. And I love that, like some of the new concepts that were introduced are the future self. And so Riley is picturing who she could be as in high school, how she wants to look. She wants to look cool. She wants to be popular and have friends and fit in and be on this team. And it also has her sense of self. And it's like this little tree that's made. There's like all these core memories and these strings and strands that go up and make this tree that says, I am a good person. And I thought that was such a cool way of like, you start to go, who am I as a person? I'm this kind of guy. I'm that kind of guy. I really thought that was awesome for this stage. And that future self, all these new emotions are a lot about the future. Anxiety, and I like this too, that there's not bad and good emotions. There's like anxiety is useful when you're planning for it. Maybe I should, practice before I go audition. Maybe I should plan for something. Maybe I should think about, where am I? Is it an appropriate time to take a selfie picture with my friends? Maybe not. But when it's these things get out of control and like, fly off the handle, that's where the problem is.
Right.
And I thought that was, just awesome stuff.
So I think what we're saying is that these aren't just movies. These are tools. These are tools. I think, again, behind the curtain here, Pixar does employ child psychologists and people with, advanced degrees in these kind of fields to help influence the way they create the movie. Because I think one of the great things Pixar does is that their movies generally always have some sort of underlying message that's important. And you can use those. They're not just films to watch. They can be used, I think. I don't know if that's the intent, but it's definitely one of the results. Okay. The first thing that I loved about Inside Out is that they are a tool, right? They are in and of themselves a tool. They literally give kids a pathway to understand their emotions, to understand what their emotions may look like and what their emotions may feel like and what their emotions do. So it kind of gives, especially for kids that are concrete, before they're in their preteen era, right? They're in concrete thought, that they can concretely say, wow, sadness is a blue color and blue sometimes makes me feel sad. And they can use that to compare it to like joy, who's green and yellow and has more vibrant colors. And I don't know how it works. It's kind of magic, but those things mix, and they tell our kids, hey, I can talk about it using this as the tool.
Yeah. I can remember when, Jack went to school, and something they did to they helped to label their emotions was there literally was an emotion wheel. It looked like a clock, and you would say, okay, point to what you're feeling. And, they would color them and things like that. So it's also important that you also tell your child how they're feeling so they could help label it. Right. Because sometimes, oh, it looks like you're mad, or you look sad. Is everything okay? That also helps them identify and help them absorb into the feelings that they're having. And also just be able to, for them to just know what just to feel comfortable with it too.
So call back to a previous episode. Don't ask your wife if she's okay, because that is a trap.
That's right. Yeah, I think it was, this was so great with, I have two daughters, one's 5, one's 7. And I think with both of them, these movies like Inside Out helped to label, like, I'm feeling this way, I'm acting this way. And, with both of them too, I feel like it helps to cool down. It's like, in the moment, I think sometimes you got to help them get out if they get stuck. Like my daughters get stuck a lot in they're angry or they're mad or they're, having a tantrum or something. And that really helps maybe, 10 minutes after, 15 minutes after saying so when you were acting that way, what were you feeling? Why, you got triggered? What's going on here? I feel like it helps once they're removed from it and they're not, in the moment and feeling really triggered or feeling, because emotions are so big with kids. And I feel like this movie was so great to just give them some kind of way to talk about it.
And kids are acting their age, right? Derek, you had something very interesting about the idea of, and this is the second kind of way that these movies are good. How do you manage your emotions, right? When kids are acting their age, Derek, what do we do? What do we do for them?
Well, it's something that I had when we had Jack, right? We looked a lot into this, right? And it's important to recognize that, right? Because I feel like as adults, you could easily say, oh, grow up or behave. Right. They're 3 years old. they are acting their age. Something that I had read is that you should try to match your child's energy. So they also recognize that, what they're going through is a big deal, right? So if someone's mad, you'd be like, oh my God, you're really mad. Like and matching them kind of helps them see visually a representation. It's like a reflection of how they feel, and actually helps them, let them know, because their communication skills when you're really little, right, they don't have the words to express things. So matching emotions is a way of actually letting them know that you see them and then you hear them, right? That doesn't mean you're yelling at your child, right, at all. It just means that you're going into that place with them, right? Because that lets them identify and know that what they're doing is okay, and you never shame, right? That's the other thing too, is putting a kid in timeout. I see this time and time again. If you're gonna tell your kid out of anger that they should be in timeout, you should have a timeout. Because they are acting their age, and you are not if you are yelling at your child.
And another full disclosure here, my daughter Leora is actually in occupational therapy for this very thing, right? Managing her emotions. And I don't think, hopefully when she gets to be a teen, she's not going to be embarrassed for me talking about this, but she does have problems labeling her emotions. And I've seen a real big growth working with her therapist, because now she can say, well, I'm mad, and things like that make me mad. And if I hear things like that, I'm going to get more angry. Yeah. And that's not necessarily the place we want her to go, but at least she can verbalize it. And she's learning these strategies to try to manage her emotions. Like, Ian, you had a great one. When kids are having big emotions, what's something they can do? Because I love this.
Yeah, so my daughter, my younger one, she's a screamer, but in school, apparently they teach this to make a bubble with your mouth. And that's just something that in the moment, it's something silly. It stops them, and you can't keep screaming if you're making a bubble with your mouth. And so I thought that's something, and I learned it from her, where she's like, she was having a moment. She was like, should I make a bubble with my mouth? I was like, sure. And it kind of calmed her down. I know sometimes too, temper tantrums was one that we struggled with a bit when they were in their terrible twos, and redirecting them. And so I had heard this thing that like temper tantrums, if you match them with anger, they're only going to get more and more, the tantrum will go on. But, stopping the tantrum and redirecting it, it can go away. And so I learned like, oh, do you want to play a game? Let's name 5 blue things in the room. Or can you name, 4 yellow things, point them out to me, or like 2 things you can hear, some of these grounding techniques.
Yep.
I feel like those things, like those kind of stop tantrums with both my girls, and awesome way to deal with them. And then meditation is another thing that I feel like I've heard slightly older kids learning, but like this is something being taught in schools now, at least the ones in Massachusetts that we're around.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that they're getting some kind of meditation, quiet stuff. I think my daughter who's 7 struggles with it a lot. She squirms around. She doesn't want to do it. It's a hard thing for a kid, but I think that's a cool thing.
Smell the flower, blow out the candle.
Right. Make the bubble, blow out the candle.
And there is a name for it. It's called social emotional learning, right? Yep. It's we're integrating as a teacher, we're integrating these things into our curriculum now. I do it a lot differently when I talk about genocide studies. Our social emotional learning thing is more directed toward empathy. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But kids learning how to implement their emotions and put it into their life and how they are able to deal with it is a validating feeling, right? So there's a funny balancing thing. Like we do have to give consequences sometimes for behavior. We do. And timeouts, they don't call it timeouts anymore, more like taking a break. But that break has a purpose. It's not just you're going to sit in the corner because you were acting bad. No, it's you're going to take a break because in order to kind of understand what's happening now, you need to be in a different space emotionally. And that's usually what breaks are supposed to do.
No, yeah, definitely. Again, like it shouldn't be a punishment though, right? It should be like, let's calm down and let's think about what was happening, right? Or try to tell me like, what's going on. It's that place of like empathy that usually will, you could come to them with, right? And you should be there with them in that space so they can then just wind that down. Like you were talking about like with tantrums, Ian, right? Part of that is like being in the moment with them and having empathy for like what they're feeling. Yeah, absolutely.
Because to those kids, those emotions are real. Mm-hmm. It's like, you could say like, oh, knock that off, or you need to, control yourself or something. But to them, that's the reality in the moment. That is just how they're feeling. And I don't think they see their feelings as a choice at that age. It's like, that is just what is happening to them. And so I think having empathy and going like, this thing happened. Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't have hit your sister, but you're frustrated that you got hit back. Right. That's really complicated, but yes, in the moment they're feeling anger or sadness, and empathizing with them to be like, okay, we'll deal with that other behavioral thing, but right now your feelings are 10 out of 10.
Yeah. And to bring it into kind of the final phase of this and bring it back to Inside Out, right? So the last thing that these movies teach us is like, in specific situations, you do have specific big emotions. For example, in both of these films, Riley's mourning some sort of change, right? She's having a grieving process because there's a loss. In the first movie, she's basically losing the entire context that her life has been. She's moving from Minnesota to San Francisco. I don't think you could change social structures, any kind of bigger thing, unless she lived on a farm or something, right? You're going from rural America, where she's playing hockey on the pond outside of her house, to the rolling hills of San Francisco. And if there's any big change like that, like it is going to take a kid a lot of work to get through that change and that emotional grieving process. While the second movie, she's mourning the loss of her childhood and innocence, right? She's moving to adolescence, where the entire slate of rules is changed.
Yeah.
From child, I mean, you think about how kids are friends in elementary school and how, like, if they fight, it's about something stupid like, hey, they used the crayons before I did. And then they go into adolescence, and then there's like boyfriends and girlfriends, and, someone says this about someone else, and the entire structure changed. Kids go through that mourning process of the change. And it's because, like Derek said, 25 is when your brain stops growing.
Yeah.
So you have these challenges until you're 25. It's not 18. You all of a sudden, you can manage your emotions and vote. Congratulations. Go out and buy some lottery tickets. It doesn't work like that. So kids do have these issues about mourning change and how change has these big emotions.
Yeah. And fireworks. Don't forget fireworks. You probably get fireworks.
You're right. But not in Massachusetts. They are illegal.
No. But you go across that border.
And amazing they become legal.
Yeah. I'll say, I think one of the big emotions, and again, I kind of alluded to it when I was talking about Inside Out too, that I thought was really brilliant, that I think a lot of kids, a lot of people don't really associate with kids is anxiety. And I know this is something that like my son struggles with sometimes, going to a new place, being in a new environment, when you have to go out of your comfort zone, that could be a big deal to a kid. And I think, places can be overwhelming. Experiences can be overwhelming. As much as you think a kid could be excited for something, they could be terrified to go on an airplane, or they could be terrified to go in front of in a big crowd. You never know, right? And it's just, how do you handle big emotions like that and addressing those big things? And I thought that's something that I thought the movie did very brilliantly. And it's just something that we always keep on our radar as parents.
Yes. And with Inside Out 2, the night before, my daughter had a soccer tryout. And she got really overwhelmed with her cleats, putting them on, finding all the things she needs, her gloves, her cleats, her shin guards. So she was kind of having, a little difficult time in the car on the way there. And it was a really stressful time. And, and it's the first time in third grade you have to try out to be on the soccer team. You're not just automatically on, which kindergarten, first, second. So it was big emotions and a lot of stress. So Inside Out 2, we went and saw, that's exactly what Riley's going through. And so I thought that movie hit home so much for my family and was awesome. And the other thing I thought we'd address is, my daughters like to wait until right when it's time to go to bed, when I'm closing the door to their bedroom and saying goodnight, to bring up emotions. Like on the way home in the car, there's nothing. I'll be like, how was school? Fine. Oh, did anything interesting happen? No. What'd you do? Art. Like I get nothing from them. And it's like the processing happens. When they try to calm their minds down, especially at night, they are just going a mile a minute. And I feel like that some of the best conversations I've had about emotions have been right as they're about to go to bed, taking a minute to not be like, go to bed, you're past your bedtime, you're tired, go to bed. Instead going like, all right, let's talk about it. What happened? Like, oh, a boy pushed you on a slide today? That's not all right. And like actually talking to them in that moment has been really awesome.
Good night, kids. Dad, I have a question. Sure. What's up, sport? What's the meaning of life? And then all you tell them is 42.
And so long, and thank you for all the fish.
Thanks for coming along with us on a journey through the minds of our kids. We definitely have a new perspective on how our kids' minds may work. Have you learned something new? Drop us a line at our Instagram and TikTok at 3dimensionaldads or emails at 3dimensionaldads@gmail.com.
Join us next time when we pull double duty. We'll give you our review of Deadpool and Wolverine and then take a greater look at the state of the MCU. With Fantastic Four on the horizon, as well as new incarnations of the X-Men and Daredevil on the way, it's the perfect time to talk about where Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's creations are headed.
Find us on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify at 3-Dimensional Dads.
Three friends, all geeks, exploring every dimension of being a dad.